Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Sports Insight with your host, Alamdar Khan. And as you know, the show is all about sports from all across the globe. And not to forget, you can definitely interact with us on our social media handles, which is at the rate of Indus News Sports, and that is on Twitter. And not only Twitter now, you can also reach us on our Instagram. Anyways, what we're definitely going to do is start up with the headlines. Yes, the 6 newcomers in the 17-man squad for the first test has been announced. We're looking forward to talk on that. Yes, Conor McGregor beaten by Dustin Poirier at the UFC 257 in Abu Dhabi. Yes, and Brooklyn Nets actually managed to win over the Big Three against Miami Heat on Saturday. Manchester United versus Liverpool. Yes, it was 3-2 and Liverpool and Bruno Fernandes actually managed to bring them on the upper end from them. We'll talk about that. And yes, those were the headlines, and we'll definitely start off with Pakistan versus South Africa. That's going to start tomorrow. The first test, yes, the first test underway. And as discussed in the headlines, that the 6 newcomers have actually been added in the 17-man squad against South Africa. The interesting part is we still have Kamran Ghulam, who actually got around 1,249 runs in the Qadi-Azam Trophy. He will definitely be in the squad. However, he's not in those lucky 6 that actually managed to be a part of the team or maybe, on ground playing. And those who have actually gotten inside that lucky 6 trio on the bowling and the batting side include Imran Butt alongside Abid Ali. And yes, we have Saud Shakir along with the pace duo Haris Rauf. And not to forget, we have Tabish Khan, Noman Ali, and Sajid Khan on the spin side. So it's going to be an interesting match for the fact that, we have like newcomers coming in, playing against a very strong, solid team, South Africa. How prepared are we? We now even have Babar Azam back as the captain, as obviously he missed out on the match against New Zealand because of the injury that he went through. Anyways, to discuss all of this, we have Adam Bell joining us all the way from New Zealand. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. All right, Adam. So as we started the discussion with regards to Pakistan versus South Africa, having a new members of the young lot of team given that opportunity on their home soil, it's going to be an interesting clash for the fact that South Africa managed to come with a victory on their shoulders, and they're pretty much confident with the performance that they gave against Sri Lanka. Pakistan, however, had a fallout with regards to their performance in New Zealand. But how do you see, is Pakistani team prepared right now to face the Proteas or not?
Look, I think they are. I was a little bit surprised that Shan Mastood and Muhammad Abbas were both dropped for the series. I thought Pakistan selectors may have given them another run, especially playing in Pakistan. Look, the last time Pakistan played a Test series in Pakistan, which was obviously last year, Shan Mastood got 100 on that occasion. And since he's played in Pakistan, he's played 3 Test matches and he's got 200s. Right. Muhammad Abbas has also performed well, not only in the UAE, but also in Pakistan. So I understand that their form wasn't so good in New Zealand, but I was surprised that those 2 guys were dropped. I would have loved to have seen how Shan Mastood and Muhammad Abbas would have done at home conditions, because at the moment in world cricket, it seems like a lot of players are more comfortable playing at home. New Zealand conditions are a lot more foreign than conditions in Pakistan, completely different pitches. I mean, in overhead conditions, and just the whole, the whole environment of cricket. Right. So I would have loved to have seen how those guys would have gone on against South Africa. However, what the selection policy has done and what the selectors have actually said is that, look, if you're not performing, you're going to be dropped. Right. And they brought in some really young players into the squad, and looking at the changes that they've made, 9 uncapped players. And what that's actually said is, look, we're going to reward guys who are playing well in the domestic competition. And we've seen Saud Shakir, who's in the final 17-man squad, who's been playing great domestic cricket over the last 5 years. The second highest averages in that period, averaging 48. So right. He's been given a run after consistent performances. Tabish Khan has been given a shot. 36 years old. He's had a great first-class career,
Right.
but they've given him 5 to go. And then Imran Butt, a fine young talent
Right.
that looks like will be opening the batting. So, look, they have made some bold decisions. I think maybe the selectors have thought to themselves, look, it's easier blooding some of these young guys at home, get them some experience, and especially in your own home conditions that they know well. Also looking at the team, like Haris Rauf is a bit of a left field pick. I think Pakistan over the last few years have really lacked that 150k pace bowler who can bowl with reverse swing.
Right.
And looking at domestic cricket, I think they probably felt that they've needed to find this type of player, that the diamond in the rough, so to speak.
Right.
Over the years, you've had the Shobak, you've had the Waka Yunuses that bowl with that extreme pace. So I think they're taking a bit of a punt on Haris Rauf, seeing that he is a rare talent and hoping that he can perform at international cricket. I don't think he will play in the first test,
Right.
but he's one, I think, for the future. Also looking at the side, Sajid Khan, who's had a great first-class season as well, been getting loads of wickets. So, look, the selectors have made a massive decision to pick guys on domestic performances, and I think it's really good to see. However, I've seen Masood and Abbas give it another go just in home conditions, just to see whether their performances would have improved.
Right. So even then, with regards to the decision that's actually been taken by PCB, obviously there was a lot of pressure on the head coach, definitely, and the bowling coach as well, because it was not only the bowling or the batting that actually went down for us in New Zealand. It was definitely the fielding part as well. But for now, the pressure is immense, and obviously having South African team on our home soil, and obviously not going through that corona situation as we went through. When we went, we were really having a tough time with regards to the quarantine. Not only us, but obviously if we talk about India versus Australia, that was the same thing pretty much with them. But however, South Africans are here. They were tested negative and they started practicing as well. They have ample time to practice on our home soil, which is definitely an edge. But yet again, do you think, because test eventually is like, we all always say that, test is all about experience and gaining experience. Don't you think we should have had like a trio of, maybe, obviously we still have Babar Azam with us as the captain, and he's definitely, we've got some senior players in the team as well. So would it actually allow the youngsters to learn the way they should have learned back in New Zealand? Because there was a lot of pressure on the team, and right now they have a different pressure. They have a pressure from the PCB, from the chief selector, from the head coach, from the bowling coach. So how do you see that pressure helping the team, or will it bring them to a point of disruption or confusion?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point. I obviously I'm from New Zealand, and I look at the New Zealand setup, and the New Zealand side over the last few years has been really consistent with selections.
Right.
And I think sometimes you've got to be very careful not to be too hasty with some of your selection decisions, and maybe just be a bit more stable in your approach just for a little while. And I actually think, looking at this series, I think it is a little bit of a positive, because they're playing an opposition that is rebuilding themselves. I mean, we've got to remember that South Africa over the last few seasons have lost a lot of the great players. And when we think of A.B. de Villiers, Hashim Amla, Vernon Philander, Dale Steyn, and Morne Morkel, that's 5 quality players. So them themselves are rebuilding, and they'll be coming to Pakistan, obviously off a very good test victory against Sri Lanka at home. But Pakistan will be completely foreign to them. None of these guys played over there. So I think, in a way, this is a good opportunity to blood some young players in the Pakistan side. And we've got to look at the actual Pakistan side at the moment. Babar Azam is a massive inclusion. He missed the Test Series at New Zealand. He's one of the best batsmen in the world. Any team that loses one of the best batsmen in the world will always struggle a little bit. And we looked at a few years ago when Steve Smith wasn't in the Australian side, or even if Wellington wasn't in the New Zealand side. Every team has that linchpin in it. And I think Babar Azam's absence in New Zealand was massive for them.
Definitely.
He's a great inclusion. And there's still enough experience in this Pakistan side. The one part of the side that's probably least experienced is in the bowling lineup. You've got Shaheen Shah Afridi, who is still a young man at 21 years of age. I mean, he is a talent. I thought he bowled quite well in patches in New Zealand, but again, it was the fielding at times let the side down. But I thought he bowled all in all really well in the series. Hassan Ali, I think, is a massive inclusion.
Right.
Again, he's not experienced at test level, but we've got to think about he's got experience in international cricket. He started off his career at Hassan Aurora, had a few injuries, bit of a form slump, went back to domestic cricket. He's been on fire in the Khatizam Trophy and was part of that thrilling first-class final, a tiebreaker. And he scored that 100 that got them into that position. So, he'll bring a lot of energy and fire into this Pakistan side. Obviously, Tabish Khan, we've talked about is hasn't played international cricket, but he has a lot of first-class experience. So,
Right.
and Yasir Shah come into his own in Pakistan conditions. We've got to remember that he didn't play in the second Test match
Right.
at Hagley Oval in Christchurch because it was green conditions. But he will come into his own. He'll become a key bowler in the series. So, though there's a lot of young guys that will be making their debuts in the series for Pakistan, I think they still have enough good experience in that side. And Fawad Alam again is another one. He'll be playing on his home patch at Karachi, and he's got an incredible record in Karachi.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be looking to getting back on some good batting decks there.
And so we're basically looking at an experience of all the talent that we have right now with regards to the test match that's going to start from tomorrow. Obviously, it's a total new inclusion. We all know it's going to be a tricky situation for not only for the batting side, but also for the bowling side. But they do have experience, and they definitely do have the edge on being on the home ground. And if they manage to secure some quality stuff and perform like they want to, I'm sure they'll be on board with regards to the entire squad, and they'll probably carry on that legacy. But as you mentioned before, with regards to Shan Masood and all other players that have actually, Shan Masood did have a solid startup, I remember, but for the past few matches, in fact, past few series, it had come up to a point of PCB pressurizing, and the coach to ensure that they change the team and they get new players inside. The only person that I was excited about was definitely Kamran Ghulam, but obviously he's in the team, but he is not in the squad. Anyways, what we'll do is Adam will take a quick break, and once we're back from the break, we'll continue our conversation with regards to Pakistan versus South Africa. See you guys after the break. And welcome back to the Sports Insight with your host Alamdar Khan. And yes, as we were discussing before the break, that we're talking more about Pakistan versus South Africa. How it's going to be, tomorrow is going to be the first test being played in Pakistan, and not to forget the second test is in Rawalpindi on the 4th of February. And we still have with us Adam Bell, who was actually discussing up with the strategies and how things are. So Adam, let me put it this way. South Africa is now in Pakistan. What strategy do you think they have? Because de Kock recently gave a press conference and said that we'll ensure that we don't take Pakistan lightly, because obviously they have an idea that if Pakistan has that edge of home soil, how will they devise the strategy, number one? And number two, with regards to the bowling take that's been told so far, they're intending to keep 2 spinners and 2 fast bowlers. How do you see them making that strategy, and is Pakistan ready for that strategy?
Look, I think South Africa will look at playing 2 spinners. I think in Pakistan and in obviously UAE in subcontinent conditions, there tends to be a lot more turn and offers more assistance for spinners. So I think South Africa will definitely go on with 2 spinners. I think you'll see Nortje and Rabada being the 2 seam bowlers.
Right.
And then I'm assuming Maharaj will be the first choice spinner. He's been the first choice spinner for South Africa for a little while. I have a feeling that George Linder will end up being the second spinner. That's just a feeling that I have. He's a left arm wrist spinner. He's played 1 test match. He's also really good with the bat, so he gives the batting lineup a little bit of depth as well. So I think they will go on with 2 spinners there. The other option that they do have is Shamsi as well, but he is an experienced at test level. He has obviously have a wealth of experience in one-day cricket, but I think George Linder might actually get the nod over Shamsi. Look, Rabada's coming back from injury as well. He didn't play against Sri Lanka. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. Like, he's had obviously experience playing in the IPL and in subcontinent conditions before, but this will be a massive challenge for him and Nortje, who again himself is experienced as well. So when you look at that South African bowling lineup, they are inexperienced. They're still, as I mentioned earlier on the show, they are still rebuilding without the Bernard Philanders, the Dale Staines, and the Mornay Morkel. So Rabada, who's got a great Test career so far, is going to be their spearhead. And how will he bowl in hot conditions on pitches that don't offer any assistance? And I think that's where reverse swing is going to be a massive factor in this Test match. In terms of the batting lineups of South Africa, they still have some very good experience. Obviously, Dean Elgar is a guy that can guts it out. He can be a little bit ugly at times with the way he bats, but he's a guy that can build big innings. Buff du Plessis as well. Great player. It's been great for South Africa over the last years, and he can knuckle down and play those really tough grinding innings and really wear down bowlers. And then obviously you've got Quinton de Kock, coming down the order, and he just plays that natural game. It's similar to the Adam Gilchrist style, where his only mode is attack. So. Right. Look, I think South Africa have got a good side, but I still think when it comes to the spin department, I think that's where Pakistan at home will have the edge. Obviously, with Yashir Shah, who has over 200 Test wickets,
right?
Versus what South Africa have in their ranks.
Right. All right. So basically, what you're looking at and how we're actually looking at is going to be an interesting match with regards to them coming to our home soil in Pakistan, and obviously devising a strategy according to that. What strategy do you think? Obviously, we do have an edge because before going to New Zealand for the tour, we had Zimbabwe in Pakistan, and we won that series. Zimbabwe only won one of the T20 matches. Do you think Pakistan, after whatever they went through in New Zealand, coming back, all the pressure, do you think they have a devised, planned strategy against South Africa?
I think it will be just to wear down their fast bowlers. I think that will be a massive key for them is not losing wickets up front to Rabada and Nortje,
right?
And being able to then put the pressure on the spinners, and then the spinners from South Africa having to maybe attack a little bit more. And when you start trying to attack as a bowler, sometimes you bowl the more lucid deliveries, and that is when you can kind of cash in. So I think for Pakistan, the key for them will be that top order really firing. And we talked about Sharma not being in the side, and it looks like Imran Butt will be opening the batting with Abib Ali. Yeah. So that top three, Abib Ali, that's a massive key for me. Whether they can get off to a good start, and then once they get off to that good start, then you've got Fawad Alam who can bat for long lengths of time. You've got Babar Azam again who can convert into big hundreds. So for me, that will be the strategy, from Pakistan.
Right. One interesting thing I was discussing with one of the South African journalists who was on our show the other day, and he said it's going to be very interesting to see the clash of Pakistan versus South Africa, because the major important thing about both the teams is the unpredictability of both the teams. How do you see that happening?
I absolutely agree. And the other unknown quantity is the fact is we've got to remember that Pakistan's only played 3 matches at home in Pakistan. Since obviously what happened years ago when obviously everything happened and they had to move to the UAE to make it their home ground. So for a lot of guys, this will be their first experience playing international cricket in Pakistan. So that's a massive thing for the side. Playing in your own home conditions is completely different than playing in the UAE. And then we look at South Africa. None of these guys have played in Pakistan as well. Possibly maybe in the PSL, but that's probably more the T20 side. So, when we really think about it, it's going to be massive. This is a rebuilding phase for both these two sides.
Right. Let's talk about de Kock, obviously mentioning in the press conference and announcing their other squad as well, because as per them, they have to go back to their hometown, get quarantined, get ready, because they eventually have to go ahead to face Australia in the future. So how do you see that? What edge do you think Pakistan will be having when they, after the test match, there's an entire major change of events with regards to getting those key players? How do you see that? Would it obviously bend towards in the support of Pakistan, or would it be something that would be an interesting clash? Because obviously T20 is definitely much different than a test match. But how do you see that playing its part for South Africa and Pakistan?
Yeah, it is interesting. As you point out, South Africa's got a series against Australia, which means that because of the scheduling and obviously with quarantine, they've had to pick a completely new T20 side for that series. They've got some exciting young players. Yaneman Milan is a fantastic player. Buren Henriks is a fine limited overs bowler. And you've got Henrik Klaas as well, who's captaining the side. So, they've got some good players in the mix. But would this be their first string T20 side? No, it wouldn't. There's other guys that would be in the side. So in terms of that series, I'm assuming at this stage that Pakistan would be playing their best side, their best T20 side. And remember, in New Zealand, they went down 2-1, but there was some great individual performances in that series. Muhammad Hafiz with 99 not out in the second T20 match, and Rizwan playing an absolute blinder in the third one to get Pakistan over the line in that third match. So I think if Pakistan go in with their best lineup, I think that they should win that series. Also got to remember Baba Azam, he will be back for the T20 series. I'm assuming he didn't play in the T20 series in New Zealand. But at this stage, from what I see, that the T20 squad for Pakistan hasn't been named as of yet. But I'm assuming if they go with the full strength side, I think they will be too strong for South Africa in that series.
Right. So eventually, whatever is going to happen is going to be a surprise for all of us, because as we see the amount of changes, the amount of upgrades that we've had, obviously there's a lot of pressure on the cricket side as well, specifically in Pakistan, because of the immense pressure on PCB, so it's going to be a tricky thing. But anyways, thank you very much, Adam Bell, for joining us and giving us your feedback with regards to the upcoming test match starting in tomorrow. That would be the first test match, and followed up with that, there will be the next test match on the 4th of February. Anyways, that was from the world of cricket we were discussing. Now we want to switch over to the next news, which is from the world of mixed martial arts. Yes, let's talk about UFC fight. So this UFC fight actually happened, in which Poirier managed to take down Conor McGregor in 2 minutes and 32 seconds. The strange part was that the first round was won by McGregor, but there was a major knockout within 2 minutes and 32 seconds. And it's definitely going to be an interesting thing, because Poirier is now obviously literally on the top, and looking forward for somehow a comeback from Khabib, for the fact that, that would be more interesting. Not to forget that there was a match that actually happened with McGregor back with Khabib, and Khabib managed to win that match. So it's going to be an interesting thing how it is all going to develop. McGregor also had beaten Poirier in 2 minutes in 2014 in September. So this is a major blow on his behalf, on his career. Let's hope things go well. With regards to the second round, when it started, it was Poirier who actually managed to take McGregor's calf down, which obviously managed him to take over and ensure that, there is a major knockout. But that's from the world of UFC. And let's talk about the NBA side of the world. Yes, let's talk about basketball. So with regards to basketball, what's really happening in the current scenario is Brooklyn Nets has actually finally decided to win against Miami Heat. Not to forget, Brooklyn Nets actually were really on their tough side recently, because obviously the trio is back, which is Kevin Durant and, James Harden and Kyrie Irving. But the interesting part about all of this is, even though they won, the trio managed to score a total of 61 points. Anyways, even though they still have that victory of 128 or by 124, but the trio still is struggling to make that presence shown. Not to forget that James Harden joined in as per the request, and how Kevin Durant was working on getting him on board. And Kyrie Irving was actually missing recently, but he joined back recently, and we definitely shared that news with you guys. But now as they're back, it's a strange thing to understand that James Harden, who Kevin Durant obviously thought that he's the right kind of person for the team, he only managed to score in the fourth quarter of the game. So sometimes when you have a lot of superstars in one team, it kind of becomes very tricky and difficult to handle. But anyways, this was from the world of NBA, and let's switch over to the football side. Yes, Manchester United versus Liverpool. Bruno Fernandes free kick actually settles the FA Cup on the 4th round tie. Not to forget that, there's this fierce rivalry amongst both of them when it comes to Manchester United and when it comes to Liverpool. But, Salah actually managed to score 2 goals, which is definitely was the plus. But Bruno Fernandes actually managed to score on the exact 78th minute from a free kick. So, but this is the world of football, and this is exactly how it happens. There's definitely more news coming up your way in the future. Anyways, I hope you guys had fun and you guys definitely got into knowing about sports from all across the globe. You can reach us on our social media handle, which is @Indus News Sports. That is on Twitter and Instagram. Till then, take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.